My Bigfoot sightings totally changed my perspective on what I thought was possible in this life. It was 2005. I was visiting my mom and my stepdad in Lonedale, Missouri. My 4-year-old son and I would go and we would spend 4 days to a week at a time, usually there. We would make a couple-hour drive down. And it was on about 350 acres or so of land that they lived on. My stepdad, Jeff, worked as a farmhand for the landowner, who also lived on the land. And my son and I would play outside most days, and there were a couple ponds. One out back to the right side of the trailer that my parents lived in, and one down across the field from us. There was a lot of woods. There were croplands around, but it wasn't too far out of town. So we would play outside. We would draw on the driveway with sidewalk chalk. We blew bubbles. We'd kick a ball around and just have a good time. The landowners had a dog. His name was Buddy. I think he was just a mixed breed. He was a smaller dog, maybe about the size of a small terrier. He was a really good dog and very kind and sweet, and he liked to hang out with us and run around with us. So we were just sitting on the front porch one day. It was actually a deck built onto the front of the trailer. And to our right at the front of the driveway was a large garage, kind of like a shop building. And then across the driveway was a large field and a pond. And we're sitting there, my son and I, and I noticed movement out in this field, quite a ways off, but noticeable. And instinctually, I really don't understand why. I just knew to get my son and get inside. And it happened so quickly. I don't think I even said anything. I just grabbed him and went in the trailer behind us. And then I was watching this thing walking through the field directly toward the trailer. And my son, and I kept staring at it like, what is that? And that's exactly what I kept repeating, not purposefully, but that's just what kept coming out of my mouth. What is that? And my son, every time he would answer me, I don't know, Mom. I don't know. And I would again, what is that? And it was slowly walking again in a direct path toward the trailer. And it got into the front yard on the other side of the driveway. And at the time, there was a wooden decorative fence that was near that far side of the driveway. And this thing, I didn't know what it was at the time, walked up to the fence, and the fence ran parallel to the trailer. So as he was walking by this fence, I was getting the side view of him. His left side was to the fence and his right side was to the trailer. And he was looking down at the ground and kind of scanning left to right on the ground, right next to the fence. And I was thinking, he's searching for something. He's looking for something. And he was walking very slow and just panning back and forth like that on the ground. So my son and I are watching this, and my brain felt like it was flipping through a Rolodex, like trying to match what I was seeing to every known living being or animal that I had been taught about, and nothing was matching. At this point, what astounded me the most, one, was that it was walking on 2 legs, and 2, that it was the most brilliant, beautiful, long white hair I had ever seen. It was perfectly clean, and it was almost just, I've heard in the years that have followed that Sasquatch hair may be transparent in a way, it may be clear. And when I think back to how brilliantly this white hair seemed to shine, that makes some sense to me, because it just seemed just to not glow, but I mean, it was just brilliant and long and straight and smooth and well kept. And I remember that was something that I'll absolutely never forget. I've never seen an animal with hair like that. And so we're watching him walk along the fence, looking down at the ground. And I just remember thinking, I've got to get an unobstructed view of this thing. I don't want to be looking through a window and a screen. I want to see it without anything between he and I. And so I gathered up some courage, because I could tell that if he followed the same path he was on, he was going to walk on the other side of the garage from me, and I'd not be able to see him anymore. And I wanted to see him unobstructed before that happened. So I walked to the front door, and I slowly opened the door and grabbed the screen door handle. I slowly opened the handle just enough where I could peek my head through. And as I opened the screen door, it squeaked. So by the time I got my head turned to look at this thing, he was looking back at me. And our eyes met. And it took my breath away. And I just stood there, frozen. And I will never forget meeting his gaze.
Save big during Labor Day at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, buy more to get up to an additional 20% off. Shop even more savings with 3 Stay Green 1 cubic foot vegetable and flower garden soil bags for $10. This Labor Day, take care of your home for less at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. Select locations only. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Some things are hard to commit to, like learning how to surf or saving for a family vacation. But one commitment that's easy, switching to BioSoap Internet with a 5-year price lock guarantee. That means 5 great summers of fast, reliable internet at the same low price. All with the Fios 1 gig internet plan. Plus no hidden fees or equipment charges. Call 1-833-VERIZON to switch today. Price guarantee applies to base monthly rate only for new and existing MyHome customers.
Grand Canyon University, an affordable private Christian university, is one of the largest universities in the country, offering more than 285 programs online. In addition to federal grants and aid, GCU's online students received nearly $161 million in institutional scholarships in 2024. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer to see the scholarships you may qualify for.
And I was instantly flooded with this feeling of, he's so sad that I'm so scared. He's so disappointed that I'm so afraid. I almost got a feeling of loneliness. I wasn't afraid of him because of anything that he was doing. He wasn't being aggressive in any way. He didn't make a mean face. He didn't growl. He didn't make any noise at all. In fact, I didn't even hear him walking. And it was just grass, but I couldn't even hear a single step. And so we are looking at each other in the eyes. I'm frozen, not sure what to do. And he turns his gaze, he turns his body back the direction that he was facing, and just continues to walk. And he gets on the other side of the garage and out of our line of sight. And so I shut the door, and my son and I take off running down the end of the trailer, to the end of the trailer, to the bedroom that my mom was sleeping in. And this all happened about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was broad daylight, very easy to see. The weather was beautiful that day. So we run down the trailer into her room. The head of her bed was at the windows that we needed to look out of. So my son jumped up on the bed. You know, I'm peeling back curtains and he's peeling back curtains, and in our tizzy, my mom's like, what's going on? She wakes up, what are you doing? What's going on? And I didn't even know what to say. Just like, where is it? Just what, Mom? Like, you got to see this. What is this? And so my son and I are looking out the windows, frantically searching for the Sasquatch, and we didn't see him. So apparently he didn't continue the same path and walk to the end of the garage and past it toward the pond. But we watched, and when it felt like it had been too long and he should have come out on the other side, we go back into the living room. We look out those windows. We didn't see him anywhere there either. And my mom's awake at this point, and she's asking us, what did you see? And I said, I don't know what it was, but it was tall, and it was walking on two legs, and it had really long, bright white hair from head to toe, covering it. And it was walking. Mom, what is that? And she's, I don't know what it was. Was it a bear? No, Mom, this wasn't a bear like ours. It didn't have like a bear face. And well, the neighbors have white dogs. Was it a dog? No, Mom, it didn't even have a dog face. It wasn't on four legs. It was walking, and it was tall. And my son said it had hands and it had feet. And she's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, this is kind of a big deal. There's something huge walking around the front yard. What is it? Do I need to be afraid? Can we go back out there? Is my son safe to go out there? And I should mention that Buddy, the dog, had been out there sitting on the porch with us when I saw that movement, and my instinct kicked in, and I grabbed my son and I ran inside. So poor Buddy was left out on the porch by himself, and he had been sleeping in one of the porch chairs. So while this whole encounter is going on and my son and I are watching from the windows, poor Buddy, he woke up at some point, probably while we were running inside, and jumped down from the chair and got underneath the chair. And I couldn't really see him from the windows because the chair was back up against the wall and he was under it. But I heard him, and he was barking, but it was a very nervous, timid bark. It wasn't a bark of I'm angry or like I could tell it wasn't like, a dominant bark. He wasn't trying to tell the Sasquatch what to do. I think it was more of like I see you, I know you're there, and I don't like it, and I'm kind of scared, so, hey buddy, could you leave type of bark. So I felt bad because Buddy was out there all by himself, but I was too afraid to open the door and go get him, and he wasn't allowed inside the trailer. So I was even concerned for Buddy's safety. And my mom just kind of, I don't know. Oh, well, let's go outside and sit and have a cup of coffee. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Where did it go? It was just like nothing had happened. My stepdad, Jeff, got home from work that day, and he was the farmhand there on that land. So I was so excited to see him, and I said, hey, this is what we saw today. What is it? And he was like, I don't know. I've never seen anything like that. And I couldn't wrap my mind around that. Like, how could you not have seen this? Just walked into the yard. Please, I needed answers. I needed to know what it was that we were watching. Were we safe? I had so many questions. And my mom didn't have answers, and Jeff didn't have answers. And so I was married at the time, and I called my husband and I asked him, I told him, I described, it was tall and it was covered in long white hair, and it had big black eyes, and I'll never forget the eyes. They were at least golf ball size and completely black, but there was so much life in them. They were not scary looking at all. They were just, they were deep. There was intellect in them. And so I'm describing what we saw to my husband, and he didn't have any answers for me. He didn't know what it was. And so life went on. And I don't remember being afraid to go outside there the next time that we came to visit. I guess the way it was handled by everyone around me was just, they didn't see it, so it didn't impact them. So there was just nothing to worry about. Life goes on, and that's what happened. So I didn't have any answers, and I stopped asking questions. Years later, it was 2008. I was living in Michigan, and I was playing a computer game called Zoo Tycoon. And I had leveled up to a point where I could put a Yeti in my zoo. And so I build the exhibit for the Yeti, and then it's time to place the Yeti in the exhibit. And out pops the Yeti, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, whoa, that is what was in my parents' front yard in Lonedale, Missouri. All I knew about Yetis was that they were in the Himalayas. And the Missouri is a long way from the Himalayas, so I didn't understand why I would have seen a Yeti in Missouri. So I immediately got on the internet and did a search for Yeti. And within a few results, I found information about Bigfoot. And I had not really been exposed to much about Bigfoot in my life. I remember as a kid, the movie Harry and the Hendersons came out, but I didn't ever watch it. It just never sparked my interest.
Some things are hard to commit to, like learning how to surf or saving for a family vacation. But one commitment that's easy, switching to FiOS internet with a 5-year price lock guarantee. That means 5 great summers of fast, reliable internet at the same low price, all with the FiOS 1 gig internet plan. Plus no hidden fees or equipment charges. Call 1-833-VERIZON to switch today. Price guarantee applies to fees monthly rate only for new and existing My Home customers.
So I think that the few things about Bigfoot that I had ever seen were always of a black or a brown gorilla-type looking creature. And what I saw that day in Lonedale was not like that at all. Of course, it was white. It wasn't brown or black. Completely white. And nothing about it reminded me of a gorilla. Even though it walked with somewhat of a hunched form, its shoulders were kind of hunched. I don't know whether that was normal or if that was because he was looking at the ground searching for something. So he was looking down and kind of hunched the whole time. I knew that he was big enough that he could have caused some damage, that he could have hurt us. I don't think the door would have even stopped him, the door to the trailer. If he wanted to get in, I don't think the door could have even kept him out. I've never been good at mathematical estimations, so it was difficult for me to describe how big he was. But I recently went back to that same place in Lonedale, Missouri, and I had my boyfriend, who's less than 6 feet tall, stand right where the Bigfoot would have been walking. The fence was no longer there, but I stood there on that front porch and I looked out at my boyfriend, and it hit me of how big that Sasquatch had to be, because my boyfriend looked small compared to what I remember the Sasquatch being. The Sasquatch was big enough that I could see its hands. I could easily see its facial features. And then my mom told me later when we talked about it that wooden fence was 4 feet high off the ground, the top of it. I know the Sasquatch was at least 2 feet higher than that, and that was with him hunched over. So we'll say he was maybe about 6 feet tall. What I couldn't get my attention off of that day watching him was that he was on 2 legs, walking on 2 legs, and covered in this brilliant white hair. And then when we met eyes, so those 3 things are what stayed with me most. But he was definitely big. So I did the search, I came across Bigfoot results, and I found the BFRO website. And so I went to it, and I read through a few of the encounters, the sightings that it listed, and I didn't find anything about white Bigfoot. But I decided to send in my encounter, and I got a phone call from a man with the BFRO, and we spoke. And he was able to tell me that white Sasquatch do exist, that they are such a thing. And I finally had answers that I had needed for 3 years. So I sent in my report and they posted it. And I felt like I finally had a little bit of closure, but there was still so much that I didn't understand. Like, this just opened up a whole new world to me. You know, like these are real. This is what I saw. And oh my gosh, I've got to learn about these things. And the more I learned, the more things made sense to me that I didn't understand before. So was at the trailer. This was before my sighting, and it was nighttime. And my stepdad was grilling out on that front porch. And like I mentioned, the garage is there in front of the driveway. So between the end of the trailer and the garage, there's like an alleyway, if you will, and then the pond back behind that. And I'm sitting there on the porch at night, and the porch light's on, but that alleyway is fairly long and it was dark. And I just remember feeling like I was being watched. And it was making me uneasy. But I kept second guessing myself and thinking, no, there's nothing there. Nobody's watching you. You're fine. And then I thought, well, maybe with the grill, with us grilling steaks, you know, maybe there's a coyote or something. And I became uneasy, and so I got up and I went inside.
Continue this one on the way back. See you on later. Alright. I hope you guys enjoyed my drive. This Bigfoot story. Do it again and listen to the rest. My next drive, which is 9 hours or 8. See y'all later.